Chapter 1633. They actually wanted Luo Qingtong to kneel down and kowtow to them as an apology. However, they had also seen how Yi Qianxian had forced Uncle Master Zhang to retreat. Naturally, they could only accept this outcome. Even so, they were not prepared to let Luo Qingtong off so easily. After the other party had apologized, they would ruthlessly extort a sum of money from the other party. Wasn't this Luo Qingtong the evil Dr. Ghost Eye? The group of people had already figured out Luo Qingtong's identity from the discussions around them. Instantly they became excited. After Luo Qingtong had apologized, they would make the other party take out a large sum of elixirs as an apology. In addition to treating their injuries, they would also need the other party's large sum of elixirs to increase their own strength. At that time, the other party would be so heartbroken that they would be unable to speak of their suffering. She had dared to attack them previously. It would be strange if they did not ruthlessly peel off a layer of her skin. The group of people were extremely pleased with themselves as they thought of this. They looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "Apologize, Luo Qingtong." "Apologize." Luo Qingtong looked at them with a light smile. There was no trace of a smile in her eyes. "Are you going to apologize to me?" "Sure." She crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked at them with a cold smile on her lips. "Oh wait. You." The group of people from the Breeze Pavilion glared at her. Uncle Master Zhang's expression was also extremely angry and cold. "You're impudent," he said coldly to Yi Qianxian. "Ming Zun, you've seen it too. She doesn't know how to appreciate kindness. It's not that I don't want to give you face. She injured our people from the Breeze Pavilion. This matter will not be settled just like this. Either she apologizes to us or we fight back. There's no third option. I think that you, the dignified Ming Zun, won't protect her to the point where you can't differentiate right from wrong and be shameless and unreasonable?" Before he could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong's cold voice rang out. "Shameless and unreasonable? Are you talking about yourselves?" Luo Qingtong sneered, her eyes sweeping over Martial Uncle Zhang and the group of people from the Breeze Pavilion behind him. "Why did I hit you? Do you dare to tell me? The one who provokes first is despicable. You guys attacked me first and were beaten back by me. You still have the nerve to call me a thief? Where is your Breeze Pavilion's face? Did a dog eat it?" Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She was originally filled with anger because the people from the Cool Breeze Pavilion had interrupted her attempt to kill Feng Yuan. If Feng Yuan didn't die and caused any more trouble, she would definitely hold the Cool Breeze Pavilion responsible for this. Not to mention that the other party was still relentlessly trying to deal with her. "You want me to apologize? Good." She was going to properly compensate them. "You." "Nonsense." The people of the Breeze Pavilion felt guilty. They had tried to stop Luo Qingtong and were beaten up by her. They even caused Song Yan to be unconscious until now. They would never dare to tell the truth. What they said to Martial Uncle Zhang was also true. Luo Qingtong had previously been bullied by Song Yan and had always harbored a grudge. When she saw them, she immediately attacked them and beat them into this state. When they heard Luo Qingtong's words, they instantly felt guilty. However, they quickly calmed down. At that time, there was no one outside the venue. Other than a few passers-by, no one had seen them stop Luo Qingtong. So what if she told the truth? Chapter 1634. The crowd thought so and soon raised their heads proudly. They sneered at Luo Qingtong and said, "Luo Qingtong, don't think that you can reverse right and wrong with your words. You were the one who hit us first. Don't talk nonsense here." "Is that so?" Luo Qingtong looked at them with a smile and suddenly raised her hand. Swoosh. A ray of light suddenly shot out from her finger and swept toward the disciple of the Breeze Pavilion who was shouting the loudest. Seeing Luo Qingtong's action, the disciples of the Breeze Pavilion didn't react at all. However, Martial Uncle Zhang's face was full of shock and anger. He raised his hand and was about to knock away the ray of light released by Luo Qingtong. However, just as he moved, Yi Qianxian's aura suddenly shook and shattered his attack with a bang. At the same time, the ray of light swept into the mouth of that disciple of the Breeze Pavilion. That disciple of the Breeze Pavilion didn't react to what had happened and inexplicably swallowed something in his mouth. He was caught off guard and swallowed it. His heart was instantly filled with panic. "What did you make me eat?" Martial Uncle Zhang was also very shocked and angry. He almost immediately attacked Luo Qingtong. However, Yi Qianxian's aura suddenly soared and enveloped Luo Qingtong. At the same time, a pair of sharp eyes that seemed to contain incomparable coldness and coldness coldly looked in his direction. The two of them were ready to attack. Luo Qingtong pulled Yi Qianxian and laughed softly. Don't worry, I didn't make them eat anything. I just made them eat something that made them speak the truth. As she spoke, she raised her hand and threw a pill to Martial Uncle Zhang. Truth pill. People who eat this pill can only speak the truth while the pill is in effect. You can check if there are any problems with this pill. Why should I believe your words? Martial Uncle Zhang's face was cold. He raised his hand and took the pill that Luo Qingtong threw to him. However, he had a bad premonition in his heart. Damn it, this girl can't be telling the truth, right? Could it be that these little bastards really lied to him? Martial Uncle Zhang's face was fierce. He fiercely turned around and glared at those disciples of the Breeze Pavilion, telling them to keep their mouths shut. He didn't care whether this matter was true or who started it first. But the Breeze Pavilion couldn't be in the wrong. He couldn't afford to lose face. As for this truth pill, he could be considered an experienced and knowledgeable person in the hidden world, but he had never heard of such a medicinal pill. It seemed that the other party was just deceiving them. As long as these little bastards kept their mouths shut, the other party, they wouldn't be able to do anything. At that time, this stinky girl would have to suffer the consequences of her own actions. With that thought in mind, Martial Uncle Zhang retracted his aura. Alright, I'll believe you this time. As he spoke, he walked in front of that disciple of the Breeze Pavilion. The latter was desperately clawing at his throat, trying to spit out the truth pill. However, it was useless. That pill melted in his mouth. That disciple of the Breeze Pavilion was flustered. At this moment, Martial Uncle Zhang's voice rang out. Speak, who among you made the first move? He looked coldly at that disciple of the Breeze Pavilion. The warning in his eyes was very obvious. Although the latter was extremely flustered, he still pointed at Luo Qingtong and said, "It's her." Chapter 1635. Good. Martial Uncle Zhang sneered. He was very pleased with himself. Sure enough, the other party was just bluffing. Did you hear that? Luo Qingtong. He said it was you. What else do you have to say? He sneered at Luo Qingtong. The truth pill was provided by the other party, and she was the one who fed it into the mouth of the disciple. Now that the other party had said that she was the one who did it, let's see what other excuses she could have. The Breeze Pavilion's disciple was also pleasantly surprised. He was very nervous just now, afraid that the truth pill was real. If that was the case, he would be in trouble. He didn't expect that Luo Qingtong was bluffing. What truth pill? It could only tell the truth. What a joke. The Breeze Pavilion disciple was very pleased with himself. He was about to raise his head to look at Luo Qingtong. Suddenly, he realized that he couldn't control his body. Slap. Just as he was about to raise his head, he suddenly raised his right hand high and slapped himself with all his strength. That disciple of the Breeze Pavilion let out a blood-curdling scream. One must know that his full strength was no less than a full-strength blow from him. In any case, he was an expert who had surpassed the Saint Realm. With this slap, his entire face was tilted to one side and half of his face was swollen. Not only that, when he opened his mouth, several teeth flew out in an instant. What made him break down even more was that the words he used when he screamed were changed. I may be *TC. I'm despicable. I'm shameless. I'm lying. As he screamed, he slapped his own mouth fiercely and shouted these words uncontrollably. In an instant, he burst into tears and almost fainted. It wasn't that he was weak, but that he used all his strength in every slap. He was about to be beaten to death, okay? Every time he opened his mouth, he would spit out several teeth. It was only a few slaps, but his teeth were almost knocked out. No one had expected his sudden change in attitude. In an instant, Martial Uncle Zhang's face darkened. What did you do to him? He glared at Luo Qingtong. The latter had a leisurely look on her face, as if she already knew that this would happen. I told you the truth pill. Luo Qingtong looked at him indifferently. You can only tell the truth. If you lie, you'll be severely punished. That's right. Luo Qingtong looked at him with a smile and said, if he continues to refuse to tell the truth, he will be beaten to death. Before she could finish her sentence, the disciple of the Breeze Pavilion immediately cried out loudly. I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth. We started it. We started it. Stop. Stop it. That voice was exceptionally mournful and sharp. Strangely enough, after he said those words, he stopped slapping himself again and again. Martial Uncle Zhang's face was unsightly. I don't believe it. You must have used some sorcery. He shouted sternly at Luo Qingtong. What truth pill? It's just a smoke screen. Who knows what she did to my disciple in secret? Chapter 1636. Translations, You don't believe me? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at him. Sure. As she spoke, she pointed at the Breeze Pavilion disciple and said, "You can ask him any question and see how he responds." Before she could finish speaking, the Breeze Pavilion disciple wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf. "I can't. Martial uncle, I really can't take it anymore." As he spoke, he fainted. Seeing this, Martial Uncle Zhang's face instantly turned ashen. Trash. He viciously kicked the Breeze Pavilion disciple away and was about to call another Breeze Pavilion disciple over. Then he felt that it was not safe. Who knew what the other party had done? That disciple had already been tricked, which meant that the other disciples could be tricked as well. As he thought of this, he immediately raised his hand and put the truth pill into his mouth. He did not believe that the other party could still do anything to him. Seeing his actions, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly flashed and then she laughed. Some people just liked to think that they were smart. She liked such people who thought that they were smart. She crossed her arms and looked at Martial Uncle Zhang. The latter had already called out another disciple of the Breeze Pavilion and had him ask him a question. "The kind that only we know when you ask," he said coldly. That disciple quickly nodded and then asked, "Martial Uncle, what is my name?" This was indeed a question that only they knew. Martial Uncle Zhang nodded with a satisfied expression. Then he purposely gave the wrong answer and said, "Chen Tong." As soon as he finished speaking, he calmed himself down and waited for the abnormal movements in his body. No matter what the other party wanted to do to him, he would fiercely suppress it and then teach the other party a lesson. At that time he would see what the other party had to say. As he thought of this, he suddenly looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with a cold expression. At this moment he suddenly felt that his body was out of control. "It's coming." Martial Uncle Zhang thought of this and immediately tried to suppress this strange movement in his body. However, this strange movement seemed to be a part of his body. No matter how much willpower he exerted, he could not suppress this power. It was as if he was shouting, "Fight." He wanted to beat the liar to death. Just like the disciple from the Breeze Pavilion, this Uncle Master Zhang raised his right hand and slapped himself hard. Before he could react, another slap landed on his face. In the blink of an eye, Martial Uncle Zhang's face was slapped to the left, then to the right. His entire face had been slapped out of shape. Because it was his own power, his body's defense was useless. The power of a peak Saint General instantly whipped him until he was hovering between life and death. As soon as he opened his mouth, he let out a blood-curdling scream. "I'm trash, I'm lowly, I deserve to die, I shouldn't have lied." He howled as he slapped himself in the face. Every slap was ruthless and he couldn't control himself at all. At this moment, this Uncle Master Zhang finally understood why the Breeze Pavilion disciple fainted when he heard that he was going to be asked another question. This feeling was really worse than death. That truth pill was actually real. Qin Peng. It's Qin Peng. Chapter 1637. He tried his best to control himself, but to no avail. Instead, the more he slapped himself, the more vicious he became. This Martial Uncle Zhang couldn't take it anymore. He called out the disciple's name loudly and finally stopped before he knocked himself out. At this moment, his face was completely swollen like a pig's head. His teeth were all over the floor. Other than the one who had completely fainted, the other disciples of the Breeze Pavilion all looked at him in shock. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. "How is it? Is the truth out now? Was it your Breeze Pavilion who made the first move, or was it me who made the first move? Senior, you have to think carefully before you answer." Luo Qingtong's face was full of smiles. She was clearly as beautiful as a flower, but in the eyes of Martial Uncle Zhang, she was as scary as a ghost. He fiercely twitched his cheek. Every time he twitched, he felt an unforgettable pain, reminding him that everything just now was not a dream. He had almost slapped himself to death. "It's you?" He gritted his teeth and wanted to make a final struggle. But before he could finish speaking, he felt his body becoming restless. His face instantly turned pale, and he no longer had any thoughts of bluffing his way out. "It's us. It's our Breeze Pavilion," he hurriedly said. Only after he said this did he feel the restlessness in his body disappear. He put down his hand that was about to raise again, and his expression instantly turned ugly. This Breeze Pavilion's Saint General expert had never been so humiliated before. He fiercely glared at the trembling Breeze Pavilion disciples who didn't even dare to look at him. He stood up, panting heavily. "Let's go." He shook off the Breeze Pavilion disciples who came to help him and turned to leave. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice slowly sounded from behind him. "Senior, you're leaving just like that? I'm afraid that's not good?" Luo Qingtong walked in front of him with her arms crossed. She smiled faintly and said, "Just now your Breeze Pavilion people said that I hit you, so I have to apologize, right? Now that you've clearly wronged me, why are you leaving just like that?" Luo Qingtong sneered as she looked at these people from the Breeze Pavilion. These people probably didn't know what it meant by, "It's easier to invite the devil in than to send it away." Why was it so easy for them to find trouble with him? You want to leave? Sure. Apologize and make amends before leaving. She would never stop him. Luo Qingtong generally didn't find trouble with others, but whoever found trouble with her had to be prepared to be skinned alive. She didn't know what it meant to be forgiving whenever possible. She only knew that if Yi Qianxian hadn't arrived, who knew what these people from the Breeze Pavilion would have done? Since that was the case, why would she let them go? Wasn't it just taking advantage of power to bully others? She knew how to do it too. Those who bullied her would be returned 100-fold. Ew. Don't go too far. Being stopped by Luo Qingtong, Martial Uncle Zhang instantly trembled with anger. This woman was simply outrageous. He and the disciples from the Breeze Pavilion had already become like this, and she actually wanted them to apologize? However, he had completely forgotten that they only had themselves to blame. Chapter 1638. This Martial Uncle Zhang coldly glared at Luo Qingtong, his heart filled with resentment. Before he came to find trouble with Luo Qingtong, he never thought that he would kick an iron plate. In his opinion, the other party was only a small student of the Holy Institute. Even if he later found out that the other party was evil Dr. Ghost Eye, he still didn't put him in his eyes. He was only slightly famous. It wasn't as if their hidden world didn't have alchemists. However, the appearance of Yi Qianxian was completely beyond his expectations. He never thought that in this secular world, there would be such a powerhouse. With the other party's strength, he should have been able to enter the hidden world. How could he stay in this secular world, unknown to the public? If it weren't for this, he wouldn't have been put in such a difficult situation. He also wouldn't have allowed this girl called Luo Qingtong to be so arrogant in front of him. This Martial Uncle Zhang suppressed the anger in his heart again and again. He coldly looked at Yi Qianxian and said, "Dark Revered, do you really want to connive with her to deal with our Breeze Pavilion? I'm afraid you don't know, but our Breeze Pavilion is a 6th-class sect in the hidden world. There's a saying, leave a way out for everything and we'll meet again in the future. Dark Revered, I think that your black field doesn't want to provoke any serious trouble because of this, right?" His eyes were arrogant, and his words contained a hidden threat. Obviously, he was prepared to use the power of the Breeze Pavilion to suppress Yi Qianxian. Hearing this, Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others who had followed behind Yi Qianxian felt their lips twitch. This other party was threatening their master? Breeze Pavilion, a 6th-class sect? They were really fierce. However, their master didn't even place the entire hidden world in his eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that he found it troublesome and didn't want to be seen through by the people of the hidden world Star Dream Branch Hall and cause unnecessary trouble for himself, then master wouldn't have stayed in the secular world of True Spill Continent. Now, this was the reason for the other party to threaten their master? Everyone looked at him as if he was an idiot. When Martial Uncle Zhang saw this, he thought that Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others were stunned by his words. He immediately snorted proudly and waved his sleeves at the people of the Breeze Pavilion. "Let's go. Let's see who dares." Before the word block could leave his mouth, he instantly fell to his knees with a bang. His legs sank deeply into the ground. Because he had used too much strength, the bones in his legs were broken. In an instant, Martial Uncle Zhang let out a miserable shriek. Yi Qianxian's cold voice rang out along with his voice. "Make them crawl out on their knees. You guys stay here and guard them." His words were naturally directed at Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others. The latter and the others hurriedly responded. Yi Qianxian's eyes swept over the shocked and incredulous people of the Breeze Pavilion. He raised his hand and pulled Luo Qingtong into his arms. Then with a flash he disappeared with the young girl. He had allowed the other party to dawdle with Luo Qingtong for so long because he didn't want this woman to hold back too much anger and grievances. Now that the matter had been resolved, it was time for him to settle the accounts between them. Bang! Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian's figures appeared in a room. Luo Qingtong was thrown onto the large bed in the room by Yi Qianxian. Then, the man's slender figure pressed down on her. "Boy toy how?" Chapter 1639. Cough, cough, cough. Luo Qingtong was trapped between his chest and the bed. She was instantly shocked by his words. Oh my god, what did she do to this man when she lost control of her mind? Boy toy. Oh my god, what's going on? Cough, cough, cough. Lord Qianming, there must be a misunderstanding. Listen to me. She hurriedly pressed against Yi Qianxian's chest, but her voice was full of guilt. It was because she did have such an idea in the past. She wanted to keep Yi Qianxian by her side to make love with him. But later she found that this man was too strong. She couldn't afford to offend him, but she could hide from him. So she gave up the idea. Could it be that after she lost control of her consciousness she accidentally revealed this idea? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. She really couldn't imagine what she did to Yi Qianxian at that time. She stole a glance at Yi Qianxian's expression. The man looked at her coldly. No need to explain, I know you weren't conscious at that time. When he said this, Luo Qingtong instantly breathed a sigh of relief. He knew? That's good, that's good. However, just as she breathed a sigh of relief, she heard Yi Qianxian continue, but even if you weren't conscious, it means that you did have such an idea. Luo Qingtong almost choked on her own saliva. How could this man be like this? How could he speak like this? She hurriedly said, I swear, I really don't have it now. So, Yi Qianming narrowed his sharp eyes and looked at her. You really did have it before? Cough, cough, cough. Luo Qingtong choked and coughed even harder. Oh my god, this man was getting harder and harder to fool. He had learned to pick the words. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. Seeing that Yi Qianxian was about to open his mouth to say something, she quickly raised her hand and hooked it around the man's neck. No, I can't let this man continue to ask. Otherwise, she didn't know how many secrets would be dug out. Luo Qingtong thought as she hooked her arms around Yi Qianming's neck and kissed him. Okay, I have feelings for you, okay? I've been plotting against you for a long time. As she spoke, her voice disappeared between her lips and Yi Qianming's. This man was evolving too quickly. She used to be the one who had him under her thumb, but now it was the other way around. He was also mentally exhausted. However, although Luo Qingtong thought so, her lips curled up slightly. The pair of eyes that were looking at the man were also sparkling. There was a faint smile in them, which was indescribably seductive. Yi Qianxian's eyes darkened the moment Luo Qingtong kissed him. He knew that this woman was cunning. She must have said that on purpose for him to hear. But he couldn't resist being bewitched. When he heard the girl say that she had been plotting against him for a long time, Yi Qianxian's lips slightly curled. Then he clasped the back of Luo Qingtong's head and kissed her deeply. This woman, I really want to swallow her into my stomach just like that. Feeling the man's aggressive plunder, Luo Qingtong chuckled and almost instantly returned the attack. She was never a woman who would be dominated by others. Even if this person was Yi Qianxian, she wouldn't allow it. Even if this was just a kiss, she wouldn't allow it. Feeling Luo Qingtong's strong response, Yi Qianxian's eyes darkened. Chapter 1640. Lord, Evil Doctor, news came from the Chu dynasty. Something happened in the holy capital. As soon as these words came out, Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian's eyes instantly changed. Especially Luo Qingtong, she almost instantly left Yi Qianxian and appeared outside the door of the room in a flash. She opened the door and looked at Bei Qing and Feng Yu outside, asking, What's going on? Her eyes were slightly bright and filled with tears. Her lips were slightly swollen. What happened? It was obvious at a glance that something had happened inside. Luo Qingtong didn't forget her original intention of rushing back. They quickly knelt down. She glanced around and didn't find anything amiss. There were no traces of battle in the holy capital of the Chu dynasty. After we got it, we immediately came to report. Didn't they say that something had happened in the holy capital? You don't have to worry too much. Luo Qingtong Master has arranged experts around old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi when a courtier of the Chu dynasty suddenly stepped forward and said, Empress Dowager nodded, Empress Dowager looked at Yi Qianxian behind her and said, What time? Qianming, I have to go back. Luo Qingtong was about to ask when she remembered to tell the fishy smell. Otherwise, if she ran away, this man would explode to the city wall. I'll go back with you. Luo Qingtong looked inside and found that it was full of large pieces of meat. He directly raised his hand and called out the sky-raising flying boat. He took Luo Qingtong and rushed up. The meat seemed to be freshly slaughtered, and it was still dripping with blood. Luo Qingtong and the others appeared in the sky above the Chu dynasty's holy capital. I can't explain it to you in a short time. The Chu dynasty's holy capital was already on guard. Old Master Luo waved his hand as Empress Dowager Yanxi and Old Master Luo standing on the city wall, so he simply let her watch on her own. Immediately rushed over. It was about time anyway. Grandfather, he waved his hand as he spoke. Luo Qingtong's figure appeared. In an instant, the huge wooden barrels were lifted up by the soldiers and dumped outside the city walls. Because of the protection of the defensive barrier, the pieces of meat in the barrels all slid out along the light of the barrier. Fine, just as Luo Qingtong was getting more and more confused, it seemed that their granddaughter had won the 4 Academies event, and the others seemed to have sensed something. Good. They looked at the mountains and forests surrounding the holy capital of the Chu dynasty, with indescribable joy. With a granddaughter like this, a series of earth-shattering noises rang out. Grandpa. These sounds came from the deep mountains and forests near the holy capital of the Chu dynasty. Although the latter could now walk again, the bones inside were very fragile. Ran out from the mountains and forests surrounding the holy capital. No matter how strong they were, they would not be as strong as those that had been tempered by cultivation before. Racing to the pieces of meat dumped by the people of the holy capital of the Chu dynasty. At most, it wouldn't hinder their movement. Luo Qingtong looked at this. It would be impossible for them to fight. What was going on? Upon seeing grandfather and the others raising a group of demon beasts, cold light. When did the relationship between demon beasts and humans become so harmonious? In the future, I will definitely let you know what kind of price you have to pay to touch the people around me. Luo Qingtong looked at these demon beasts that were obviously very strong. As for grandfather Luo's if she remembered correctly, definitely find a demonic beast like this could occupy a mountain in the Holy Dynasty's mountain range and become the king of a mountain. And there wouldn't be too many of them. Why were there so many of them here? Luo Qingtong frowned as she looked at these demon beasts. At this moment she heard old Master Luo's voice ring out again. Bring it up again. This time, buckets of meat soaked in spiritual herbs were brought up. The spiritual energy and medicinal efficacy contained in these pieces of meat were astonishing. Luo Qingtong looked at the pieces of meat being poured down. Suddenly she had an idea. Could it be what she thought? Just as she was thinking, wave after wave of resounding voices suddenly came from the dense forest of the holy capital of Chu. These sounds were either clear or dull, sharp or rough. However, without exception, all of them contained the power to draw upon the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Saint Beast? Luo Qingtong watched as a green flood dragon leaped out and grabbed the largest piece of meat. Soon after, another blue luan flew out with a sharp cry, holding another piece of meat in its mouth. Its pair of wings flashed with a green metallic luster, beautiful and moving as it flapped in the air. Against the sunlight, it was unusually beautiful. Behind them, there was a group of saint beasts, each of which had a piece of spiritual meat in their mouths. Luo Qingtong looked at the large group of saint beasts that had appeared, then looked at the demon beasts that had appeared before. She immediately raised her hand and pressed her forehead, the corners of her mouth twitching. She finally knew why old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi had urgently sent a message to call her back. Oh my, weren't these demon beasts the ones she had brought back from the border of the far west wilderness? Although there were fewer demon beasts, Luo Qingtong really couldn't be more familiar with those few saint beasts. Chapter 1642. Grandpa, what's going on? She looked at Master Luo. The latter also had a bitter expression on his face. I don't know either. Master Luo said, a few days ago, these monsters suddenly appeared. What's strange is that they didn't hurt people and just sat around the sacred capital. You also know how tyrannical their strength is. In less than 2 days, almost all the monsters in the mountains and rivers around the sacred capital were eaten by them. The corners of Elder Luo's mouth twitched as he walked away. He still hadn't forgotten the scene of this large group of monsters suddenly running out and asking for food. At that time, they thought that these monsters were going to attack the city and were scared to death, hurriedly raising a protective shield. However, these monsters just surrounded them and kept shouting. Because they recognized that these monsters seemed to be the same ones that Luo Qingtong had brought to the border to help destroy the Yong army, and these monsters didn't attack them. Master Luo and the others naturally didn't attack these monsters. After figuring out that they were hungry, they began to feed them. Fortunately, the Chu sacred dynasty was vast and rich in resources. Feeding these monsters wasn't a big deal. However, these monsters surrounded the sacred capital and there was nothing they could do. Although these monsters didn't hurt people, their strength was really too tyrannical. If they suddenly went on a rampage, who could bear it? Master Luo thought about it and sent a letter to Blackfield, asking them to inform Luo Qingtong to come back. Because he didn't want to disturb Luo Qingtong and distract her, Master Luo sealed the news and only sent it to Luo Qingtong now. The people of the sacred capital were trembling with fear for a while. Luo Qingtong listened, frowning slightly as she looked at these monsters. After seeing these monsters, Yi Qianxian also turned his gaze to Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others beside him. The latter and the others had a bitter look on their faces. Master, we swear that we really drove them back to where they came from. How could these demonic beasts appear here again and surround the sacred capital of the Great Chu? They really didn't know. While Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others were explaining to Yi Qianxian, the holy beasts also noticed them. Screech. They immediately saw the girl standing on the city wall. That blue luan let out a cry and was about to swoop down, but when it saw Yi Qianming on the side, it quickly retracted its wings and hurriedly retreated. It looked at Luo Qingtong and screeched again and again. Beside the blue luan, the huge blue flood dragon also raised its head and looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong, then roared at Luo Qingtong. As its roar sounded, the air around the entire Chu sacred capital faintly trembled. The other holy beasts and demonic beasts also cried out in unison. They looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with burning eyes. At a glance, it was obvious that they were coming for her. Luo Qingtong frowned. Could it be that these monsters had deliberately come to seek revenge on her? Deliberately besieging the sacred capital of the Great Chu and waiting for her to appear? She wasn't the only one who thought so. Yi Qianxian and the others also thought so. Looking at the holy beast staring at Luo Qingtong covetously, Yi Qianxian's eyes flashed with cold light. Chapter 1643. Screech. Seeing Yi Qianxian's actions, the sacred beasts were a little anxious in an instant. At this moment, the Qing Luan suddenly screeched, then turned around and rushed into the dense forest in the mountain range they had just rushed out of. Soon, it picked up a few people and threw them in front of the city gate of the holy capital of Chu. It screeched in the direction of Luo Qingtong and the others. Luo Qingtong didn't know what it meant and immediately looked at those people. At this moment, a courtier of the Great Chu suddenly shouted, These are the people of the Great Yong Imperial Secret Service. They are the men of sacrifice and shadow guards they have trained. Look at the insignia of the imperial family on their bodies. As his voice sounded, everyone also saw the insignia on the torn clothes of those people. It was the symbol of the Great Yong Imperial family. These people's strength had all surpassed the Saint Realm. They were wearing black night clothes. At this moment, they were lying outside the city gate of the holy capital of Great Yong with their last breath. Looking at their attire, it seemed that they wanted to sneak into the holy capital of Chu, but were caught by these sacred beasts? With that thought in mind, everyone gasped. If such a group of people who had surpassed the Saint Realm really sneaked into the holy capital of Chu to cause trouble or attack the people of the Great Chu imperial family, the consequences would be unimaginable. In this way, these sacred beasts could be considered to have helped them. Everyone thought so and suddenly looked at these sacred beasts with some surprise. They didn't know why they did this. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong had vaguely guessed something. You're here for this? As she spoke, she released a little bit of the internal aura of the 9-story exquisite pagoda. In an instant, those sacred beasts and demon beasts all became restless. They looked at Luo Qingtong with fanatical and burning faces. They wanted to rush up, but they were afraid of Yi Qianxian's strength. Screech. The Qing Luan, which seemed to be the representative, screeched and nodded at Luo Qingtong. Ong. Behind it, the group of sacred beasts and demon beasts all opened their mouths and roared. Luo Qingtong had a headache when she heard these cries. Both parties spoke different languages, so there was no way to communicate. She frowned as she looked at these demonic beasts. Then, as if she had thought of something, she raised her hand and released Little Pig from the 9-story exquisite pagoda. Plop. Little Pig was sleeping in the 9-layered exquisite pagoda when he was released by Luo Qingtong and fell to the ground with a thud. It was stunned for a long time. When it got up and saw a circle of demonic beasts outside, it was instantly shocked. What's going on? Why are there so many demonic beasts? He widened his eyes, quickly discovering that these demonic beasts were the same ones that Luo Qingtong had lured over to destroy Great Yong's army. But hadn't Yi Qianxian driven these demonic beasts away? Why are they here again? While it was thinking, it heard Luo Qingtong say, Tell them that I can give them some of the aura inside the 9-layered exquisite pagoda, but they have to be loyal to me. Otherwise, there's no need to talk about it. Luo Qingtong looked at these demonic beasts outside the city. Now that she knew the purpose of these demonic beasts, she had a way to deal with them. Seeing that these demonic beasts didn't cause any trouble, Luo Qingtong could give them some of the aura inside the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. But these demonic beasts had to be loyal to her. Chapter 1644. Luo Qingtong couldn't hope that they would continue like today and not cause trouble or harm Grandfather Luo and the others. She had to get rid of all the unstable factors. If these demonic beasts were willing to swear allegiance to her, then she could give them the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda to help them become stronger. If they were unwilling, then forget it. Seeing that they didn't harm the people of the holy capital, she could let them go. But if there was a next time, she wouldn't let them go. Roar. Hearing Little Pig's words, the sacred beasts were in an uproar. They looked in Luo Qingtong's direction and screamed sharply. What's going on? What did they say? Luo Qingtong looked at Little Pig. They said they're willing to use the information of a treasure land in exchange for the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. Little Pig said honestly. In other words, they're not willing to submit? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. If that's the case, then let them go. The aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda was extraordinary. If these demonic beasts weren't willing to submit to her, Luo Qingtong would definitely not give them the aura. This was to prevent them from getting greedy and doing something irreparable. Hearing this, the demonic beasts became even more restless. They looked fiercely in Luo Qingtong's direction. Their thirst for the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda made them lose their rationality. They even ignored the dangerous aura emitted from Yi Qianxian's body. Roar! The azure flood dragon suddenly roared and flew toward Luo Qingtong. As for the blue Luan beside it, it led the saint beasts around it to attack Yi Qianren at the same time. They didn't want to deal with Yi Qianxian, but they didn't want him to help Luo Qingtong. These sacred beasts weren't weak, so they could naturally see that Yi Qianxian valued Luo Qingtong. As long as they had this girl in their hands, the other party would definitely hesitate to attack. At that time, they would be able to get what they wanted. Roar! The sacred beasts were very fast. The group of people from the Great Chu didn't expect that the sacred beasts, who had been docile for so long, would suddenly go berserk. They didn't have time to react. Moreover, because of the sacred beasts' actions from the Great Yong Imperial Secret Service, they had removed the defensive barrier. After all, every second the barrier required a large amount of resources. With Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian's sacred beasts, the people from the Great Chu naturally let their guard down. Unexpectedly, an unforeseen event happened at this moment. Qingtong. Old Master Luo panicked and wanted to push Luo Qingtong away. However, Luo Qingtong's father. I'm fine, Grandpa. Qingtong said. Luo Qingtong's to Luo Qingtong. Beasts are beasts. As expected, their wild nature is hard to tame. Since you don't want to submit, then I'll beat you until you're completely convinced. Get down. Following Luo Qingtong's clear shout. In her mind, a power that was extremely deterring to demonic beasts suddenly appeared. In an instant, the azure flood dragon, which was about to grab her with its claws, wailed and fell to the ground with a bang. Chapter 1645. Boom. 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 The mountain-like figures were instantly sent flying several hundred meters away. The demon beasts spat out blood as they wailed and rolled on the ground. They heavily smashed into the dense forest and the ground in front of them, breaking countless trees in their wake. In just an instant, not a single demon beast could be seen within several hundred meters of Yi Qianxian. "These pig heads are really courting death," Little Pig muttered as he watched from the side. "Attacking Luo Qingtong in front of this man? Are they tired of living? Even I don't dare to provoke this man, okay? Where did these pig heads get their courage from?" As Little Pig muttered, he completely forgot that he was also a pig right now. And a super cute one at that. "Who are these pig heads scolding? Submit or die." Luo Qingtong's voice was ice cold. Yi Qianxian stood beside her. He didn't say anything and only released his aura. In an instant, those demon beasts felt as if their hearts had been ruthlessly struck by a heavy blow. An extremely dangerous feeling enveloped them, causing them to repeatedly cry out and nod their heads. There was no need to choose between life and death. These demon beasts didn't know that Yi Qianxian was so strong. They also didn't know that Luo Qingtong was not to be trifled with. They didn't feel that suppressive force before, and when Yi Qianxian drove them away, he didn't use such a heavy hand. This caused them to misjudge and think that they had an opportunity to take advantage of. These demon beasts whined and submitted. The group of Great Chu people who stood on the city wall were dumbfounded. When those demon beasts pounced on them, they thought that they were in trouble. After all, they knew how powerful these demonic beasts were. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, all these demon beasts would be sent flying and submit? They looked at Yi Qianxian with fear and reverence. At the same time, they were also very respectful towards Luo Qingtong. After all, they also saw how the Azure Flood Dragon fell to the ground. The holy conferred princess was truly amazing. The people of Great Chu rejoiced in their hearts. Fortunately, they knew how to repay the kindness and did not forcibly separate Grandine and Empress Dowager. Instead, they recognized Old Master Luo and let him marry Empress Dowager. Otherwise, how could the Great Chu be in its current state? Thinking of how Great Yong had been destroyed by the Black Field, everyone looked at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian with reverence. "Grandpa." Luo Qingtong pulled Grandpa Luo over. The latter still had a lingering fear in his heart as he glared at the group of demonic beasts. "Qingtong, let's just kill all these demonic beasts." Thinking of the violent counterattack of these monsters just now, Grandfather Luo is very opposed to Luo Qingtong accepting them. These demonic beasts were too unruly, and their strength was tyrannical. If something were to happen to Luo Qingtong one day, wouldn't she suffer a backlash? It was too dangerous. Grandfather Luo still didn't know that Luo Qingtong could help others contract demonic beasts. He immediately coaxed Luo Qingtong, "Good granddaughter, be obedient. These demonic beasts can't be kept. If they suddenly counterattack in the future, it will be bad for you." Grandfather Luo said with a frown. Luo Qingtong listened and laughed. She looked at Grandfather Luo with curved eyes, and her heart was indescribably warm. Chapter 1646. No matter what, he would always think of her first. "Grandpa, it's okay." As Luo Qingtong spoke, she smiled and leaned over to Old Master Luo's ear, whispering a few words. In an instant, Grandfather Luo's eyes widened. You. Qingtong, are you serious?" Old Master Luo looked at his granddaughter's smiling face and stuttered. Not for anything else but because what Luo Qingtong said to him just now was really too shocking. His granddaughter could actually help others contract demonic beasts. What kind of ability was this? His granddaughter was also a beast tamer? And a high-level one. In an instant, Grandfather Luo was almost stunned. When Luo Qingtong told Grandfather Luo about this matter, she already knew that he would be like this. She smiled and whispered to him, "Grandpa, lower your voice. This will be our Luo family's secret in the future." Luo Qingtong didn't want her ability to be exposed so quickly. The threat of Beast Tamer King Valley had not been eliminated yet. And one more secret trump card was a good thing for her, Grandfather Luo, and everyone in the Luo family. Luo Qingtong liked to see those enemies come over proudly and arrogantly, only to be slapped in the face in the end. Okay. Grandfather Luo repeatedly agreed. He also knew the seriousness of this matter, so he wouldn't casually reveal it. For example, he hid the matter of the spiritual chi gun and spiritual chi bullets very well, and also his granddaughter's identity as evil Dr. Ghost Eye. However, with a bitter face, Grandfather Luo whispered to Luo Qingtong, Tong, you don't have to hide this from your grandmother, right? Because of the spiritual chi gun and spiritual chi bullets, as well as Luo Qingtong's identity, he almost had his ear pulled off by Empress Dowager Yanxi. If it wasn't for the fact that she felt pain when she saw him, he didn't know how she would fix him. If he still hid it from her, Grandfather Luo felt that his ear that was pulled before was faintly hurting again. No need. Luo Qingtong smiled and looked at the bitter face of Old Master Luo. I'm going to let you and Grandma contract the Green Flood Dragon and Green Yuan respectively. She believed that Empress Dowager Yanxi would know what to do. As for the other demonic beasts, you can choose some of the talented and loyal disciples of the Luo clan to form contracts with. Luo Qingtong would bring half of these demon beasts to the far west wilderness to contract with Tianxia's people. The more trump cards she had, the better. That way she would have the confidence to face danger in the future. In this world, the winner was king and the strong were respected. She would never be a weakling. Not in the past, not now. Luo Qingtong made these demon beasts swear an oath of allegiance with their hearts and souls, and then let them disperse into the jungle by themselves. Then Luo Qingtong took Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi into the jungle, and helped them form contracts with the Green Flood Dragon and Green Yuan respectively. The two most tyrannical holy beasts were very unwilling at first, but after Luo Qingtong helped them form contracts, they found that what Luo Qingtong helped them form contracts was actually a heaven and earth contract, and they instantly cried out excitedly. A heaven and earth contract was the highest level of contract. Their growth and advancement were not restricted in any way, and at the same time, they could complement each other with their master. Chapter 1647. The two sacred beasts instantly acted as if they had picked up a treasure, treating Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi with great enthusiasm. Not for anything else, but these two people were Luo Qingtong's grandfather and grandmother. With the girl's ability, would their strength be weak in the future? That was absolutely impossible. The sudden change in the attitude of the two sacred beasts surprised Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi. However, they didn't know the difference between a heaven and earth contract and an ordinary contract, so they didn't think much about it. They only thought that this was a normal situation after contracting. The other demonic beasts that Old Master Luo had chosen to contract with also let out excited howls, and all of them became extremely obedient. The remaining demonic beasts that hadn't contracted with Luo Qingtong changed from their initial rejection to envy. They all surrounded Luo Qingtong and howled, indicating that they also wanted a master. If it weren't for Yi Qianxian emitting a cold intent from the side, these demonic beasts would probably be able to bury Luo Qingtong. And this excitement reached its peak when Luo Qingtong drew out the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda for them to devour. Roar! Beast roars sounded one after another, and in an instant, the injuries on the demonic beasts recovered. Not only that, several demonic beasts that were close to the bottleneck of their strength directly broke through with the help of the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. Pop pop pop. Sounds like butterflies breaking out of their cocoons sounded. These demonic beasts all broke through their current ranks, and they instantly looked at Luo Qingtong with indescribable excitement. Of course, this was also because it was their first time coming into contact with the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda, so there was such an obvious nourishment and breakthrough effect. It wouldn't be so obvious if it happened again. However, it was still very beneficial for their strength advancement in the future. If they could eat from time to time, their strength breakthrough time would be much faster than before. His own potential would also increase. These demonic beasts all roared excitedly to the sky, causing the entire Great Chu sacred capital to not know what was going on. They didn't think that Luo Qingtong could actually help others contract demon beasts. Therefore, although it was very strange that Luo Qingtong could subdue these demon beasts, they didn't think too much about it. After helping Grandfather Luo and the others form a contract with these demonic beasts, Luo Qingtong also learned about the treasured land that they were talking about. Northern region. Bright Moon Island? Luo Qingtong raised her hand and rubbed her chin. According to those demon beasts just a few days ago, there was a sudden burst of spirit chi that only they could sense in the northern territory. The reason why they knew the name Bright Moon Island was because they had heard about it from the demonic beasts that had flown over from other places. They wanted to use this information to exchange for the aura of the 9-fold exquisite pagoda with Luo Qingtong, but they did not expect that the latter only wanted them to pledge their allegiance. If they had known that Luo Qingtong could help them form a contract with others, would they have gone through so much trouble? They would have pledged their allegiance long ago, okay? Just as Luo Qingtong was deep in thought, somewhere outside the sacred capital of the Empire of Qin, several figures with fierce auras appeared. I've asked around. Elder Xie and the others disappeared when they were chasing a girl named Luo Qingtong. Chapter 1648. Humph. The figure with the sharpest aura coldly snorted and said, "What grand meeting of the 4 academies? It's just those sects of the 6th grade and below. After finding it difficult to recruit disciples from the hidden worlds, they set their sights on the secular lands of the true Spill continent. They want to find some good seedlings. In these years they've recruited many good disciples from the secular lands. But those people, compared to the ordinary disciples of our hidden worlds, are only mediocre." The man's voice was very dismissive. He looked down on this so-called grand meeting of the 4 academies. Only in the secular lands of the true Spill continent, where the spiritual energy was so barren, would the sects of the 6th grade and below that were forced to come to the secular lands to recruit disciples. In the eyes of the people of the secular lands, a 6th grade sect was already considered a top sect. They were really ignorant and foolish. He coldly snorted. He didn't care about Luo Qingtong's identity at all. This was also because the Great Qi Empire was far away from the other 3 dynasties. Although the people of the Empire of Qi knew that Luo Qingtong had won, they didn't know the specific details. Otherwise, if this person knew the strength that Luo Qingtong had revealed and the identity of the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, he wouldn't have been so disdainful and careless. After all, to be able to cultivate to such a degree in the barren secular lands, and to have such an ability in alchemy, Luo Qingtong's future was absolutely limitless. Her talent and strength were simply formidable to a terrifying degree. Good. Since we know that the other party has been in contact with Elder Xie before, and that they have a grudge, we'll immediately go to the holy capital of the Great Chu dynasty and find the other party to clarify this matter. The matter in the land of the fallen immortals is related to the future development of our celestial palace. We can't make any mistakes. We have to find out who got the information in the end. Elder Xie who killed him. We must eliminate all those who know of this information. The man's voice was sharp, and there was a hidden killing intent. Yes. The other 2 celestial palace people answered in unison. The 3 of them disappeared outside the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. In Great Chu's holy capital, Luo Qingtong made arrangements for all the demon beasts and returned to Great Chu's imperial palace with Yi Qianxian and grandfather Luo. However, what Luo Qingtong didn't expect was that as soon as she returned, she was kicked out of her room by her grandfather. That was right. He was chased out. Luo Qingtong stared at the closed door in front of her. She didn't know what her grandfather wanted to do. He said that he wanted to talk to Yi Qianxian about some men's topics and then chased her out. "Grandpa, don't you know that you're being sexist?" Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. But in the end he didn't go against his grandfather's wishes. Ever since she transmigrated to this strange world, she could feel grandfather Luo's love and care for her. Needless to say, this time, it must have something to do with her, so he deliberately sent her away. Luo Qingtong could roughly guess what grandfather Luo wanted to say to Yi Qianxian. Her lips curved slightly and she turned to walk out. Felt good to have family. Luo Qingtong quite liked this feeling of grandfather Luo worrying for her. It was very novel. Luo Qingtong casually strolled around Great Chu's imperial palace. Seeing that it was her, the patrolling guards all saluted and let her pass. Luo Qingtong nodded at them. Chapter 1649. Luo Qingtong walked straight ahead. They walked all the way until they reached an extremely remote courtyard before they came to a stop. "Since you are here, why don't you show yourself?" Luo Qingtong looked indifferently at the place where the rockery was located not far away. The bloody light in her eyes flickered faintly. Under her eye technique, 3 figures were clearly revealed. These people had just appeared near her and followed her all the way. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. Luo Qingtong? The 3 people didn't expect that they would be discovered by Luo Qingtong. They walked out of their hiding places and looked at Luo Qingtong with puzzled eyes. However, they didn't think too much about it. After all, this was the Great Chu Imperial Palace. Perhaps they didn't pay attention and exposed their tracks, and were discovered by the other party. The 3 people didn't pay too much attention to it. They stared at Luo Qingtong. Their figures flashed and surrounded Luo Qingtong. At the same time, the aura around them spread out and enveloped the courtyard to prevent the movement here from spreading out. "You are Luo Qingtong?" the man in the lead said. His gaze was arrogant, and the way he looked at Luo Qingtong was indescribably superior. His aura was blocked. It was the cultivation of the Sage Master Realm. The aura of the 2 people beside him was also the strength of the Sage Master Realm. 1 Sage Master Realm, 2 Sage Masters. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. She looked at the 3 people calmly and said, "I am and you are, humph. You don't need to know who we are. You just need to tell us that a few months ago, you and a Celestial Palace's Elder Xie had a conflict in the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. That Elder Xie chased you and left. Where did he go after that? The eyes of the Sage Master Realm expert flickered with a fierce light. His gaze towards Luo Qingtong was filled with cold killing intent. The other party couldn't be left alive. No matter what Luo Qingtong's reply was, they would eliminate the source of trouble. They didn't want to accidentally leak the information and alert the enemy. After all, who knew if the other party was related to the murderer of Elder Xie? Just in case they wouldn't let Luo Qingtong go. Oh, you are from the Celestial Palace. Luo Qingtong looked at the three people with her lips slightly curled. So that's it. She had even said that three experts had suddenly appeared out of nowhere and were tailing her. She was still thinking about how to capture them alive for interrogation. This saved her a lot of trouble. Luo Qingtong smiled and said to them, "You want to know who killed Elder Xie, right?" The moment her words left her mouth, the eyes of the three from the Celestial Palace lit up. You know? The eyes of the Sage Master Realm expert flickered as he looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "Okay, tell us. From now on, you will be a member of our Celestial Palace. I can make the decision to accept you into our Celestial Palace. You should know that our Celestial Palace is a third-class sect. And you can only enter a sixth-class sect when you participate in the 4 academies gathering." The Sage Master Realm expert said proudly, "As long as you can enter our Celestial Palace, your future will be limitless." Of course she had to be alive to enjoy it. The Sage Master Realm expert sneered inwardly. He was waiting for Luo Qingtong to say the other party's name, then he would immediately kill her. Chapter 1650. Luo Qingtong looked playfully at the killing intent flashing in the eyes of the Sage Master. The other party probably thought that she had concealed it very well. However, regardless of whether the other party wanted to kill her or not, she wasn't going to let these 3 people from Celestial Palace go back. She had to take precautions before it rained, and she had to remove the roots when cutting weeds. These people wanted to kill her, but how could they know that she didn't want to let them go? Luo Qingtong pretended to be flattered. Then, she seemed to think of something and said awkwardly, "But I swore to the heavens that I wouldn't reveal that person's name in order to survive. How about this, senior? Come over and I'll write it down for you," she said to the Sage Master. The Sage Master wasn't afraid that Luo Qingtong would play any tricks. The other party was only in the Sage realm and wasn't worth mentioning in front of the 3 of them. Moreover, Luo Qingtong's words were logical. The murderer killed their people from Celestial Palace and was naturally afraid of revealing his identity. If Luo Qingtong didn't do anything and was released by the other party, they would still be suspicious. Now that they heard Luo Qingtong say that she swore to the heavens that she wouldn't reveal the other party's name, they immediately felt relieved. "Okay, write it down." As they spoke, they came to Luo Qingtong's side. "Okay." Luo Qingtong looked at the 3 Celestial Palace experts who were already very close to her and nodded with a smile. "Senior, look." As she spoke, she suddenly raised her hand and waved. In an instant, the heart of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood appeared in her hand and the life and death yin-yang sword was also in her hand. Heaven-seizing style. Luo Qingtong directly slashed her sword at the weakest saint amongst them, and she killed him on the spot. At such a short distance, the other party was caught off guard. Even that Saint Master and the other Saint Realm expert didn't react in time. They only recovered from their shock when that Saint Realm expert perished. "You." That Saint expert was shocked and furious. He never thought that Luo Qingtong would actually have this kind of strength. The other party was merely a Saint Realm expert. How could he suddenly unleash such a powerful attack that far exceeded his own strength? How did she do it? What was with the sudden burst of power in her body? His heart was filled with shock and anger. He almost immediately wanted to attack Luo Qingtong. However, before he could do anything, in an instant, a figure rushed out from behind him and pounced on him, hugging him tightly. This black figure was none other than the Saint Realm puppet that had devoured Feng Yuan earlier. The latter had been refined into a corpse by a living person, so he was filled with resentment. If there was no one to restrain it, after devouring the corpse refiner, it would start a massacre and bring disaster to the world. Luo Qingtong took control of him after he devoured Feng Yuan. Right now, he suddenly rushed out, immediately restricting this sacred expert's movements. Bang! When this sacred expert was hugged by the Sage Master puppet, Luo Qingtong's other attack slashed down. In the blink of an eye, he killed another saint who was retreating in panic. In an instant, that sacred expert went mad. "Ah! Bitch, I'll kill you." He stared at the corpses of the two Saint Realm experts with bloodshot eyes, and then his aura suddenly erupted and instantly blasted away the Saint Realm puppet he was holding tightly to. Chapter 1651. Bang! Just as he leaped towards Luo Qingtong, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. With a wave of his sleeve he was sent flying. Qianren. Seeing the man's figure in the air, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up. She retracted the attack she had been preparing. When the sage sovereign came into contact with Yi Qianxian's aura, he couldn't help but tremble. Strong. Too strong. He looked in Yi Qianxian's direction in horror. He could feel that the other party didn't use any strength to send him flying. Under such circumstances, wouldn't it be easy for the other party to kill him? He didn't dare to stay any longer. He didn't even dare to look at Yi Qianxian. He got up and ran out. However, as soon as he turned around, the sage sovereign puppet he had sent flying suddenly pounced on him and bit him. Ah! That Saint Sovereign Realm expert of the Celestial Peak Palace let out a blood-curdling scream as he was pushed down. Then the whole place was filled with mournful screams. Soon he didn't make any sound. You don't want to keep him alive? Yi Qianxian looked at Luo Qingtong. He was just about to capture the other party. No need. Luo Qingtong shook her head. She already knew the other party's intentions. There was no need to keep him alive to force a confession. As for making the other party submit, she had no intention of doing so. The other party was from Celestial Palace. If they pretended to submit and then fled back to Celestial Palace, they would risk being punished to death by the Heavenly Tao to tell the other people in Celestial Palace about her whereabouts. Things would become troublesome. Luo Qingtong didn't want to take this risk. Therefore she didn't plan to let the three Celestial Palace people live. Who are they? Yi Qianxian looked at the corpses of the three Celestial Palace people. The other party's strength was not ordinary. Was he from the hidden world? He was talking to Grandfather Luo just now, and did not deliberately spread out his aura to sense the aura of the entire Great Chu Imperial Palace. Otherwise, these three people would definitely not be able to enter, let alone attack Luo Qingtong. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded. They are from the Celestial Palace. She frowned as she spoke. People from the Celestial Palace were looking for her. She was afraid that she would not be able to hide the fact that she had killed Elder Xie. But it was no wonder. Too many people knew about the conflict between her and Elder Xie. If the Celestial Palace wanted to investigate the cause of Elder Xie's death, they would definitely start with him. Now that she was here, these people from Celestial Palace came directly for her. If she wasn't around, would these people go after Old Master Luo and the others? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. No, she had to think of a way to temporarily divert the attention of the Celestial Palace people. At least, she could not trouble Old Master Luo and the others while she was at Bright Moon Island in the northern region. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and tapped the back of her hand with her fingers. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. In an instant, her lips curled up and she said to Yi Qianxian, Qianren, let's go to the sacred capital of the Great Qi dynasty. To give a gift to someone. Luo Qingtong smiled wickedly. She was a very vengeful person. Those people from the Breeze Pavilion came to make trouble for her before, but they let Feng Wan escape. Then they wanted to seek revenge and they even distorted the truth and slandered her. This time, they would take the blame for the Celestial Palace for her. Chapter 1652. Translation. Yi Qianren looked at the evil aura at the corner of her lips and instantly snorted. He did not know what she was up to this time. However, he did not interrupt Luo Qingtong's excitement. Let this woman do whatever she wanted. Even if the sky fell, he would be there to support it. Yi Qianxian brought Luo Qingtong and disappeared from the Great Chu Imperial Palace. Dark night, Great Qi dynasty's holy capital. Song Yin was throwing a tantrum where the people from the Breeze Pavilion were. I don't care. I will make that woman suffer. Song Yin covered her bruised and swollen face. She could not get rid of her resentment. That woman called Luo Qingtong was too audacious. She thought about how she had ordered the people from the Breeze Pavilion to stop Luo Qingtong. Not only had she failed, but she had also been beaten up. The bruises on her face had yet to fade. Why? She was just a woman from the secular world. She was just a little genius. How dare she treat her like this? No matter how powerful that Ming Zun from the Black Field was, could he be more powerful than the entire Breeze Pavilion? He was just bullying the strong cultivators from the hidden world. Song Yin was infuriated. Senior Uncle Zhang's face was also very gloomy. The injuries on his legs had been healed. However, he had been forced to crawl out of the Four Academies' grand banquet. It was too humiliating. He still remembered the extreme humiliation that made him want to kill himself. He had arrogantly gone to find trouble with others. In the end, he had been humiliated. He gritted his teeth as he thought of this. We can't find trouble with that Luo Qingtong for now. That Ming Zun from the Black Field was too powerful. He could not defeat him. However, before Song Yan could voice her displeasure, he had already laughed coldly. I can revoke that Luo Qingtong and everyone related to her from entering the hidden world. He then instructed the people around him, go and tell the people from the other sects that I suspect there is something wrong with the Four Academies' grand banquet. The result of the competition is invalid. Those who won and can enter the hidden world will all be disqualified. Martial Uncle Zhang's face was very cold. Luo Qingtong's strength had already reached the Sage Realm. It was reasonable to say that she could rely on this Sage Realm strength to directly enter the hidden world. However, she had injured someone from the Breeze Pavilion. As long as he reported this matter, he would be able to prevent her from entering. After all, the strength of a Sage Realm expert was not particularly powerful. As for Luo Qingtong's potential and ability, he was currently the strongest in this secular world. As long as he forced the people from the other sects who knew about this, they would not be able to reveal this matter. The people of the hidden world didn't know her potential and strength, so who would stand up for her? Martial Uncle Zhang thought with a cold smile. He wanted Lin Ming to be trapped in the mortal world of True Spill Continent until he died. So what if he had great potential and strength? If she couldn't enter the hidden world, how much could her strength increase in this secular world? Unless she could obtain a great lucky chance, she would be crippled for the rest of her life. This was the price she and that Ming Zun had to pay for daring to deal with them. Chapter 1653. As Uncle Zhang thought of this, the sneer on his face became even more obvious. Although Song Yan was still very dissatisfied and felt that this was not enough to vent the anger in her heart, this was all she could do now. She did not continue to say anything. At this moment, a black shadow suddenly darted into the courtyard where they were. Who is it? Uncle Zhang was the first to react. He immediately slammed the table and flew out to chase after the shadow. Bang! He chased the shadow out of the courtyard and directly slammed his palm at the shadow. Surprisingly, the black shadow didn't dodge at all. Instead, it raised its hand and threw a huge object at him. Bang! Uncle Zhang's palm slammed hard on the object thrown by the shadow. In an instant, he felt his palm hit the flesh. Before he could react, he heard an extremely sharp voice coming from the side not far away. Ah! Murder! Then another extremely angry voice was heard. People from the Breeze Pavilion, you killed people from the Celestial Palace. You and I cannot exist under the same sky. What? Upon hearing that voice, Martial Uncle Zhang was instantly stunned. Even the people from the Breeze Pavilion who had chased after him from the courtyard were stunned. What? People from the Celestial Palace? They looked in the direction of Uncle Zhang in shock and realized that there was a corpse lying in front of him. Not far away from where the voice came from, there were also two corpses lying on the ground. In an instant, the people from the Breeze Pavilion were stunned. Uncle Zhang, you killed people from the Celestial Palace? The disciples of the Breeze Pavilion stuttered. Celestial Palace. Third-class sect. Any elder or above would be enough to raise the entire Breeze Pavilion to the ground. Uncle Zhang actually killed people from their sect? Even if Uncle Zhang found out that someone was eavesdropping, he did not have to do this, right? No, it was not me. Uncle Zhang was indescribably flustered and exasperated as the disciples stared at him in horror. How could he explain? This person was not killed by him at all. The person was already dead when he was thrown in front of him. Martial Uncle Zhang only reacted after the palm strike, but it was already too late. Furthermore, he did not expect the other party to be from Celestial Palace. Damn it! Who was it that killed these people from the Celestial Palace and framed him? Martial Uncle Zhang was infuriated. However, no one believed him. This was especially true for those who had followed behind the people of the Breeze Pavilion. They had been attracted by the commotion and the shouts. When they saw the corpses of the three people from the Celestial Palace lying on the ground and Martial Uncle Zhang, who was standing not far from the corpses and had obviously fought, they instantly scattered like birds and beasts. They did not want to be silenced by the other party. However, the people from the Breeze Pavilion were too arrogant and bold. He even dared to kill someone from Celestial Palace. Did he think that he was the strongest here, so he got carried away by his own arrogance? With that thought in mind, the crowd dispersed. That martial Uncle Zhang did not even know who had seen this scene, let alone threaten these people not to say anything. Just like that, he took the blame. In an instant he was so angry that he almost fainted on the spot. Who? Who the hell set me up? He roared madly, but no one paid any attention to him. Chapter 1654. Not far from the corner of the wall, Luo Qingtong nestled in Yi Qianxian's arms, watching this scene with a sweet smile. The curve of her lips became more and more evil. Qianming, let's go. Let the people of the Breeze Pavilion have a headache on how to explain to the people of the Celestial Palace. With them as a shield, the attention of the people of the Celestial Palace would definitely be diverted. For the time being, they would not notice her side. With this period of time as a buffer, it was enough for her to return from the Bright Moon Island in the northern region. She did not know what was going on there. She hoped that it would give her a surprise. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. As for Yi Qianren, his expression was indifferent as he looked at the crafty and evil woman in his arms. Without saying a word, he leaped and disappeared into the boundless night sky. On the way to the northern region in the Atlas flying ship, Luo Qingtong lay in Yi Qianming's arms and looked at the man in front of her curiously. She asked, "Qianming, what did you say to grandfather?" Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered. After coming out of the Great Chu Palace, Yi Qianming had been a little strange. She did not pay much attention to it before, but now that she was alone with him, she immediately felt it. As for what was strange, Luo Qingtong raised her hand to touch the man's chest. However, before she could touch Yi Qianming, her hand was caught. Nothing. Yi Qianming's expression was indifferent. His eyes were like swords staring at Luo Qingtong. The dark fire in his eyes surged and surged, but he did not move at all. He only held Luo Qingtong's hand and did not move. Really? Luo Qingtong looked at him and her eyes flickered. Yes. Yi Qianming's eyes darkened. The scene of his conversation with Old Master Luo flashed in his mind. Lord, I don't know if you are serious about Bien, or if it is just a temporary interest. In the room, Old Master Luo looked at Yi Qianming with a solemn expression and asked, "Of course I am serious." Yi Qianming's eyes were cold. If the person who asked this question was not Old Master Luo, he would have been sent flying out. His feelings for Luo Qingtong could not be blasphemed. Good. Old Master Luo nodded and looked at him. Then the Great Lord will marry Hua Wu in the future, right? Of course. Good. Old Master Luo stood up. In that case, Lord, let's not beat around the bush. If anyone dares to hurt her, then I'll fight with my life on the line. Calm, but... Otherwise, please don't touch her. My Bien deserves the best in the world. Lord, I think you should understand what I mean, right? Old Master Luo met Yi Qianming's gaze without fear. He knew that if Yi Qianming did not like Luo Qingtong enough and could not tolerate her, he would immediately attack him. But he still had to say it. His Bien had a hard life and his parents were not by his side. He was the one who brought her up. Chapter 1655. If Yi Qianming really loved Bien, then he would break all difficulties and marry her. If he couldn't even do this, then the so-called love was just empty words. How could he be with Luo Qingtong? His grandson-in-law didn't need to have a prominent identity or tyrannical strength, but he must love Luo Qingtong. He must be good to her. I understand. Yi Qianming looked deeply into Old Master Luo's eyes and finally withdrew his gaze. I won't let her suffer the slightest grievance. The other party was also a treasure in his hands. Before I marry her, I won't touch her. Yi Qianxian's thoughts pulled away from his memories. He looked at Luo Qingtong and his gaze deepened. He would deal with the matters over there as soon as possible. At that time he would propose marriage to the Luo family. He would not let this woman suffer the slightest grievance. Luo Qingtong thought of several methods but couldn't get any information from Yi Qianxian. She could only give up. Soon the Atlas flying ship swept into the territory of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court in the northern region. The Sea Emperor Dragon Court was the only force in the northern region. In the far north region, the 800 million mile sea was the place where people of the true Spill continent set foot the least. In addition to the Endless Sea, there was only the Endless Sea. The only place where people could live was the islands in the sea. The Sea Emperor Dragon Court was the ruler of the far north region. They called themselves the Sea Emperor and ruled over all the people in the 800 million mile sea. It was said that the direct descendants of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court had the ability to control water and sea monsters. They could even live underwater for a long time. In the far north region they were very worshipped and revered. This kind of reverence had even reached a fanatical level. They were regarded as gods. And the central city of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court was Sea Emperor Island. That was the capital of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. As for Bright Moon Island, Luo Qingtong Yi Qianxian and the others traveled all the way, but they didn't hear anything about it. If not for the fact that those demonic beasts were already loyal to her and coveted the aura inside the 9-story exquisite pagoda, they would never tell her fake news. Luo Qingtong would have thought that she had been deceived. She thought for a moment and decided to go to Sea Emperor Island to take a look. This was the central royal city of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. Perhaps they would be able to find some clues related to Bright Moon Island there. Yi Qianxian naturally had no objections. He had originally come here to accompany Luo Qingtong. Wherever the girl went he would go. The two of them rarely went out together. In addition, Luo Qingtong had already blamed the Celestial Palace incident on the people of the Breeze Pavilion. For the time being, there was no need to worry that the other party would cause trouble for Grandfather Luo. Yi Qianxian also arranged for the experts of the Black Field to stay by Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi's side. Luo Qingtong didn't have any burdens in her heart, so she naturally wasn't very anxious. The two of them traveled all the way to Sea Emperor Island. In the Great Qi Dynasty's holy capital, Martial Uncle Zhang was so angry that he almost had a cerebral hemorrhage after being framed by Luo Qingtong. He returned to the place where he and the others were staying. When he thought of the people of the Celestial Palace who could come to deal with him at any time, he instantly trembled with anger and fear. Bastard! Don't let me find out who framed me. Otherwise, I'll make her suffer a fate worse than death. I won't let this go, I won't let this go. He roared crazily. Hearing his words, Song Yan's heart suddenly jumped. Chapter 1656. Martial Uncle, I think that this was most likely done by that Luo Qingtong. Her eyes were filled with malice as she instigated, Martial Uncle, you see, in the mortal world of True Spill Continent, we don't have any enemies. There is only that Luo Qingtong who tried to deal with us before. I think that these 3 Celestial Palace people were killed by that Blackfield underworld revered. She deliberately framed us. You see, we are from the Cool Breeze Pavilion. She doesn't dare to deal with us openly, so she can only use such shady methods. She wants to borrow a knife to kill us and have those people from Celestial Palace deal with us. Martial Uncle, this woman's heart is too dark. She wants you to die. Song Yin spared no effort to incite. In truth, most of what she said was nonsense. In this 4-courtyard meeting, there were many people from the other sects of True Spill Continent. They were extremely arrogant and wanton. Who knew who they had offended and who they had been framed by? But no matter who it was, she had to say that it was Luo Qingtong, who told her to offend her before. With such a good opportunity, she had to have Martial Uncle Zhang ruthlessly teach her a lesson. Luo Qingtong wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Uncle Master Zhang's face instantly darkened when he heard her words. Slut. He fiercely clenched his teeth. That stinking girl. He was afraid of underworld revered strength and let her go. He didn't want to cause trouble for her, but she actually came to deal with him. This Martial Uncle Zhang was in a rage at this moment. He was like a mad dog that was eager to bite someone. As soon as he heard Song Yan's words, he immediately believed her. Or rather, whether he believed her or not, he needed a place to vent his anger. Investigate for me. Where is that stinking girl? I don't believe that Ming Zun can stay by her side all the time. Don't give him a chance. Otherwise he would make her suffer a fate worse than death. Yes, Martial Uncle. As Song Yin saw that she had succeeded, she was secretly overjoyed. She quickly replied, we will definitely investigate carefully. Luo Qingtong, just you wait. She was extremely pleased with herself. In the northern region, Luo Qingtong was still unaware of this. She was strolling around Sea Emperor Island with Yi Qianxian. Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others followed them from a distance. The Sea Emperor Island occupied an extremely large area. It was almost like a giant beast crawling in this vast sea. It was surrounded by 4 islands that looked like guards. It was said that when the Sea Emperor's Dragon Court was first established, the first Sea Emperor controlled countless sea monsters, controlling seawater and sand at the same time, piling up and expanding the island. At that time this was regarded as a miracle. The Sea Emperor's Dragon Court had also established itself as the ruler of the far north. For so many years, the people of the northern divine region had relied on the sea for their livelihood. Regardless of whether they were cultivators or ordinary people, Their reverence and respect for the Sea Emperor's dragon court had never disappeared. Luo Qingtong held Yi Qianxian's hand. While listening to everyone's praise for the Sea Emperor's dragon court, she secretly inquired about Bright Moon Island. Yi Qianxian, who was beside her, wore a golden mask on his face. His handsome face was completely hidden behind the mask. But even so, it couldn't hide his innate elegance. Everyone who passed by, regardless of whether they were men or women, all gathered their gazes on him. Yi Qianren turned a blind eye to these gazes. Chapter 1657. Luo Qingtong suddenly heard a series of earth-shattering cheers coming from the front. It was extremely loud. "Auntie, what's going on? Why is it so lively in front?" Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian had just landed on the island and didn't know what was going on. Luo Qingtong was chatting with an old auntie and asked immediately, "Oh, this is the Sea Emperor ritual." The auntie smiled at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian and said, "You two are from the outside, right? The Sea Emperor ritual is a big event in the northern region. Everyone knows about it. Today is the birthday of our Sea Emperor Island. It's also the day that the Sea Emperor will come to the northern region and seek for the well-being of the northern region. On this day, all the islands will hold a grand Sea Emperor ritual. Among them, our Sea Emperor Island will hold the grandest one. All the important figures in the Sea Emperor's royal court will attend, including the princes, princesses, and concubines. It's rare for outsiders like you to see it. You can go and have a look." The auntie smiled and said, "The Sea Emperor ritual hasn't officially started yet. There's still time." As she spoke, she leaned closer to Luo Qingtong and whispered, "Miss, is this your husband beside you? I know he must be very handsome with one look. Hurry up and bring him to the Sea Emperor ritual. May the Sea Emperor bless the two of you for a long time. I'm afraid that a little vixen will kidnap your husband." Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh when she heard this. Before she could reply, she felt her hand being pulled by someone. Yi Qianxian pulled her towards the direction of the cheers. Hey, what are you doing?" Luo Qingtong tried to hold back her laughter as she followed him. "I'll give you a chance to beg others to not let a vixen kidnap me." Yi Qianxian's expression was indifferent, but his gaze towards Luo Qingtong was abnormally deep. The two words husband from the auntie just now made him feel very comfortable in his heart. Especially when she urged Luo Qingtong to hurry up and go to the Sea Emperor ritual so that he wouldn't be kidnapped by others, he felt even more comfortable. Luo Qingtong couldn't hold it in anymore. "Aha, you also believe in this?" She looked at Yi Qianren teasingly and then realized that the man's face had darkened. All right, let's go. I'm also curious about the sea. I'm curious about the Sea Emperor ritual." At the same time, they wanted to go there to inquire about the Moon Island. On Luo Qingtong's, Luo Ming'an's was on the island. As Luo Qingtong said this, she tiptoed and kissed the man's chin with a smile. Only then did Yi Qianxian's expression turn for the better. He snorted coldly and pulled Luo Qingtong into his arms. Then he rushed towards the direction of the Sea Emperor ritual. However, Yi Qianxian probably didn't expect that such a thing would happen at the Sea Emperor ritual. If he had known, he definitely wouldn't have gone with Luo Qingtong. The two of them rushed towards the direction of the Sea Emperor ritual. The closer they got, the louder the cheers became. When the two of them arrived at the venue of the Sea Emperor ritual, they saw a sea of people. Countless people surrounded a square in front of them. Chapter 1658. There was a statue there. It was said that it was left behind by the first Sea Emperor. From the excited voices of the people around her, Luo Qingtong could tell that there would be a miracle when the Sea King ritual began. Miracle? Is it that interesting? Luo Qingtong looked at the scene in the square. On the square, the young men and women of the Sea Emperor's dragon court were lined up. Among these people, the oldest was about 12 or 13 years old, while the youngest was 5 or 6 years old. They were all direct descendants of the Sea Emperor's dragon court. It was said that during the Sea Emperor ceremony, these people would be able to obtain the power bestowed by the Sea Emperor by praying in front of the statue. This was also the most important source of strength for the people of the Sea Emperor's dragon court. It was the difference between them and the other martial artists of the North region, and the ability to rule the North region. Every year during the Sea Emperor ceremony, there would be direct descendants of the Sea Emperor's dragon court who would awaken. Therefore, the Sea Emperor ceremony on Sea Emperor Island was watched by the most people, and it was also the most famous. The Sea Emperor ceremonies on other islands were just a formality. Only the Sea Emperor ceremony on Sea Emperor Island had real symbolic meaning and practicality. Buzz. As Luo Qingtong looked over, the prayers and cheers in the Sea Emperor ceremony had reached a climax. Then, a person who looked like a sorcerer held a wooden scepter in his hand and suddenly pointed it forward. In an instant, the entire statue of the Sea Emperor suddenly emitted a dazzling light. An incomparably huge light shield instantly enveloped everyone in the square. Following the appearance of this huge light shield, the young men and women standing in front of the Sea Emperor's statue in rows suddenly burst forth with rays of light. In an instant, an incredible change happened to their bodies. A certain part of their bodies had turned into a beast form. At the same time, swoosh! One of the youths suddenly raised his hand, and an extremely cold gust of wind shot out from his fin-like hand. In midair, an invisible stream of water gushed out. Ah! I succeeded in awakening. The young man's voice was filled with ecstasy. Seeing this scene, the earth-shattering cheers all around became louder. Sea Emperor! Sea Emperor! Cheers could be heard one after another. The crowd in the square was almost fanatical, roaring hysterically. They kept surging forward, dancing in all kinds of ways. The entire crowd surrounding the square began to fluctuate wildly and violently. As for Yi Qianren, the expression on his face changed the moment the light barrier descended. Not because of anything else, but because the power of the demon fox's curse that had been suppressed in his body suddenly started to boil again. One had to know that Yi Qianxian had a special constitution. After he dissolved and fused with the demon fox blood essence and successfully extended his life, the blood curse of the demon fox was suppressed. However, the suppression did not disappear. The power of the demonic fox blood curse was still there, but Yi Qianxian was enough to prevent it from affecting him. However, the demonic fox blood curse power in Yi Qianxian's body burst forth again as the statue of the Sea Emperor shone brightly during the Sea Emperor ritual. Almost instantly, Yi Qianxian turned into a mini fox. His clothes and robes were scattered all over the ground, and the dark golden mask on his face fell to the ground with a clang. Paji! Yi Qianxian fell into the pile of clothes and was instantly stunned. Chapter 1659. Whoosh! The frenzied crowd that was constantly roaring and rushing forward was driven back by the guards of the Sea Emperor royal court. In an instant, they covered Yi Qianxian's small silver fox body. Qianren. Luo Qingtong didn't even react when Yi Qianxian transformed. She only felt the man beside her disappear in an instant. She subconsciously turned her head and saw the little silver fox that fell on the pile of clothes. She was stunned for a moment, and then the crowd rushed over and covered Yi Qianxian's figure. Luo Qingtong saw this scene and hurriedly rushed over, trying to pull Yi Qianxian out of the sea of people. However, there were simply too many people being chased back. Everyone was involuntarily retreating. Luo Qingtong went against the flow and encountered too much resistance. Yi Qianxian's small body didn't have the advantage in this crazily surging crowd. In an instant he was pushed far away. Fortunately, Yi Qianxian's body was strong and agile. After being stunned for a moment, he didn't have time to be annoyed. He directly jumped up and ran in the direction of Luo Qingtong's voice. Bang! On the important viewing platform of the Sea Emperor Royal Court, a bright and beautiful girl dressed in luxurious princess clothes stood up with a whoosh. She didn't care about the wide chair behind her. Quickly capture that little silver fox for this princess. She stretched out her hand and pointed at Yi Qianxian, who was constantly shuttling through the crowd and sweeping toward Luo Qingtong. Her proud and bright face was filled with pleasant surprise. The third princess of the Sea Emperor only glanced down the stage and didn't expect to see a person transform into a fox. Thinking of the moment when that person transformed, and the handsome face that was revealed when the dark gold mask fell off, her heart thumped. What surprised her even more was that the other party had transformed into a complete beast form. Oh my God, could this be? The third princess' heartbeat quickened as she thought of a possibility. She shouted sternly, "Quick! Catch it for me. No one is allowed to hurt it. Otherwise this princess will not let you off easily." The group of guards from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court didn't dare to be careless when they heard this. They hurriedly led their troops towards Yi Qianxian. The guards in charge of guarding the square also received the order and immediately rushed into the crowd, driving away all the people around Yi Qianxian. The latter quickly realized that something was wrong. When a guard from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court pounced on him, he instantly dodged to the side. At the same time he used his sharp claws to viciously scratch the guard. Roar! Yi Qianren's face instantly darkened when she subconsciously did this. Not because of anything else but because this action was really very childish and it had no lethality at all. He looked coldly at the guard from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court who wiped the trace of blood on his face and then pounced on him again. At the same time the guards around it pounced on him. Yi Qianxian's figure was trapped in the middle of them. At this moment, a figure flashed in and caught the fox in his arms before the guards could pounce on him. "Sorry, this is my little silver fox. Sorry to disturb everyone." Chapter 1660. When the latter sensed her presence, it retracted its sharp front claws and huddled in her arms with a cold snort. Its little head was buried in Luo Qingtong's elbow, and it didn't even want to raise its head. Its heart was filled with indescribable depression. It wasn't for anything else, but the fact that he didn't want Luo Qingtong to discover his secret of transforming into the silver fox. Everything was exposed now. Damn it, if he had known earlier, he would never have participated in this Sea Emperor's ceremony. Yi Qianxian's heart was filled with a burst of anger, and the nature of a young fox emerged. In an instant, its four little claws scratched Luo Qingtong's chest. It scratched Luo Qingtong's robe until it was pulled up. Feeling the little guy fidgeting in her arms, and seeing that Yi Qianxian didn't even want to raise his head, Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh in her heart. She nodded to the people from the Sea Emperor's royal court and turned to leave. At this moment, a charming and stern voice rang out. "Stop!" The third princess of the Sea Emperor arrived at this moment. She looked at Luo Qingtong's beautiful face with jealousy, and then her gaze fell on Yi Qianxian in Luo Qingtong's arms. Seeing the latter lying in Luo Qingtong's arms so obediently, she knew that the two must be together. No. She couldn't let them take this man away. He was the one who took a fancy to her. What's more, this man was able to transform into his beast form under the light of the Sea Emperor's heart, and in such a complete form. She couldn't let him go. Thinking of this, she suddenly said coldly, "Who said that this little fox is yours? It clearly sneaked out of this princess's residence. I was looking everywhere for it. How did it become your little fox?" As she spoke, she raised her head and said to the guards beside her, "Go, take it for me." Yes. When the people from the Sea Emperor's royal court heard this, they immediately surrounded Luo Qingtong. The latter stopped in his tracks and turned around with a frown on his face. He looked at the arrogant and overbearing third princess and said coldly, "Third princess, this little fox is in my arms. It's obvious who she is at a glance. What do you people from the Sea Emperor's royal court mean? As long as one wasn't blind, one could see that Yi Qianxian was hers. The third princess of the sea wanted to snatch it by force?" Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold as she thought of this. This princess said, "This little fox is mine. The third princess of the sea looked to Luo Qingtong's Luo Qingtong. She said slowly, "As for why it's lying in your arms so obediently, I'll know what you did to it after I capture you." Of course she had the final say. She said that Luo Qingtong did it, then she did it. The third princess looked at Luo Qingtong coldly. "Fight with me?" She sneered. This man turned into a fox, she must have it. If she knew what was good for her, she would immediately put down the silver fox and leave. She could still save her life. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to leave Sea Emperor Island. On Sea Emperor Island, the Sea Emperor's royal court was God, heaven, and everything. Men, capture her. Bring that little fox to me. Following the third princess's voice, the people from the Sea Emperor's royal court were about to make a move on Luo Qingtong. The latter's eyes sharpened and she was about to make a move. Chapter 1661. Big Sister? Following this voice, a skinny figure dashed towards Luo Qingtong. "Your Highness! Your Highness!" A group of people followed behind that figure and hurriedly chased after him. "Your Highness!" The group of people from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court who were about to attack Luo Qingtong saw the figure rushing towards them and immediately knelt down. They didn't dare to attack anymore. "What are you all doing?" When the figure got closer, he realized that Luo Qingtong and the others were at daggers drawn. He stopped in his tracks and looked at the people who were about to attack Luo Qingtong. Yes, yes. The people from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court looked at the third princess and didn't dare to make a sound. They didn't dare to say that it was the third princess who ordered them to attack the girl and steal her little fox. "Third royal sister, what's going on?" That figure looked solemnly at the third princess of the Sea Emperor, and the latter looked at him with an ugly expression. "Royal brother, do you know her?" She pointed at Luo Qingtong. At this moment, the latter also recognized the figure that was rushing over. "Here, little she?" Luo Qingtong looked at the young man in front of her in surprise. The latter's jade-white face looked like it was carved from jade. Because he had started to grow taller, the lines on his face had become more slender. He looked a little more handsome, but he was still very cute. Who else could he be if he wasn't the little boy from the Lanyue aristocratic family whom she had saved on the Nine Magi Mountain? He was actually from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court in the northern region? The people from the Lanyue aristocratic family said that he had been taken away. Was he taken away by the people from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court? Luo Qingtong's expression was one of shock, but little Lucky's expression was one of joy. "Yes, big sister, you still remember me?" He looked at Luo Qingtong with admiration. That pair of beautiful eyes seemed to be sparkling. To Huang Fushi, Luo Qingtong was the light that appeared in his life. She had saved everything, including his life and destiny. He would never forget the moment he saw Luo Qingtong when he was chased by the demonic pythons in the Nine Magi Mountain. The girl's face was covered in blood and tatters, but she had saved him from the demonic pythons easily. Not only that, but she had also cured the poison in his body and saved his life. It was all because of Luo Qingtong that he was able to return to the Sea Emperor Dragon Court in the northern region and be called Little Highness. Huang Fushi looked at Luo Qingtong with eyes full of admiration and admiration for Luo Qingtong. He didn't even pay attention to the third princess beside him. The latter was completely ignored and instantly clenched his teeth in anger. "Royal brother, I'm asking you. Also, who are you calling big sister?" She looked at Luo Qingtong with disdain and said coldly, "Don't forget that you are the little prince of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. Not just anyone can be your big sister." Her heart was filled with uneasiness. This woman knew Huang Fushi. How troublesome. If that was the case, she couldn't do anything to her. The third princess gritted her teeth at this thought. "That's my problem. You don't have to worry about it, big sister Wang." Huang Fushi came to his senses and recalled the scene he had just seen. He immediately put on a stern face and said, "Why did big sister Wang attack my big sister?" Chapter 1662. He stared at the third princess with a solemn expression. He knew his royal sister's personality very well. In the past, when he was judged to be a good-for-nothing who couldn't cultivate or awaken the Neptune's bloodline, she was as harsh as she wanted to be. The other party was arrogant and willful, and the whole world had to flatter her. If she said that she was the one who took the initiative to provoke Luo Qingtong, he would definitely not doubt it. "Royal brother, what do you mean by this? I am your royal sister. You're siding with an outsider?" The third princess looked at Huang Fushi coldly. What's wrong with elder sister Wang saying that? She's the one who stole the silver fox. You should be the one to reflect on your actions and accept your punishment. Can I get my own thing back? Tens of millions of people on Sea Emperor Island will be bitterly disappointed in our Sea Emperor Island. This princess with an outsider? Father has always taught us she had already made up her mind. Have you forgotten? No matter what the other party said later, she would insist on this point. The princess was so angry that she almost fell to the ground when she heard Huang Fuxi's words. Man turned into this traitorous bastard. She stared at Yi Qianxian. She's actually helping an outsider deal with a burning gaze. She was so angry that she wanted to say coldly and didn't bother to pay attention to her. After discovering that Luo Qingtong was no longer in danger, Chapter 1663, curled up again and nestled in Luo Qingtong's arms. This little fox is yours? He was still depressed about his identity being exposed. The third princess instantly didn't know how that woman would laugh at him that were about to come out of her mouth. As for the third princess, her little brother was so naive, she wasn't even a speck of dust. Couldn't possibly speak. Seeing Yi Qianxian's how could she prove that disregard for her was hers? The third princess, no matter how intimate their actions were, she couldn't hide her jealousy and hatred what they had done to the silver fox. She would see how they would deal with Huang Fuxi. Her little brother had dug a big hole for her, and that I can overlook her crime of stealing the silver fox. She didn't know that this was all because Luo Qingtong had sent a voice transmission to Huang Fuxi. No. How could the third princess let go of such a big hole that Huang Fuxi had dug for her? She looked at the proud and complacent third princess and said coldly, she followed Huang Fuxi's words and said, "Fine. I'm afraid the Sea Emperor's Dragon Court doesn't teach you to be thick-skinned and shameless. I will immediately apologize to her and admit that I have insulted the reputation of the Sea Emperor's royal court." The third princess was so angry that her chest heaved up in the royal court. She looked at Huang Fuxi angrily and said, "Then this little silver fox belongs to me." She insulted our Sea Emperor's Dragon Court, especially her for insulting the Sea Emperor's royal court. At that time, a descendant you and the Sea Empress must not deliberately cover. Don't let her do as she pleases. The third princess of the Sea Empress that he wanted Huang Fuxi to deal with. She would only win this bet. However, the young man's words almost angered her half to death. Then the silver fox would belong to her. If what elder sister said is wrong, she didn't need to do anything to get everything she wanted, elder Wang and she could even teach Huang Fuxi a lesson. In this way, this woman could be considered to have done her a big favor. Then elder sister Wang has tarnished the reputation of our Sea Emperor's family had been the dominant force. She and her brother couldn't do anything to them, although the other party wouldn't be arrogant for much longer. But before that, being able to teach them a good lesson was also very refreshing. The third princess thought so, and the smile on her face became even colder and more arrogant. "Fine. I promise you. Your Highness." The guards on Huang Fuxi's side hurriedly called out. The young boy waved his hand nonchalantly. "Sister, you can prove it, right?" He was full of confidence in Luo Qingtong. He didn't believe that Luo Qingtong would harm him. Of course. Luo Qingtong chuckled when she saw the smug and cold expression on the third princess' face. Then she reached out to touch the useless ring on her finger. Although Yi Qianxian didn't pay any attention to the third princess, his ears were perked up as he listened to the commotion outside. At this moment, he sensed Luo Qingtong's movements and thought of what she had just said. He suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. What was this woman going to use to prove her identity? He was in his beast form and couldn't speak. Even if he could interact with her intimately and point out her name, the third princess of the sea wouldn't acknowledge him. This woman agreed to such a condition and was so confident. Could it be? Yi Qianxian suddenly thought of a possibility and jumped up in an instant. The hair on his body seemed to be about to explode and he ran out with a swish. However, just as he moved, Luo Qingtong hugged him. "Good boy." Luo Qingtong held back her laughter and kissed him on the nose. Chapter 1664. That won't do. Yi Qianxian was about to explode. But before it could struggle, Luo Qingtong had already put it on. That's right, the things that Luo Qingtong took out were the things that she had shown Yi Qianxian before, the things that she had sewn for little silver. Little cloaks, little scarves, little hats and so on. The patterns on it were extremely gaudy and adorable. Damn it, wasn't they were as exaggerated as they could be. Man. They were as cute as they could be. Why did that woman have so many things that were obviously used by when he saw these things? The evidence was so conclusive that she couldn't even refute it. If it could speak now, the content of its words would definitely be. Could it be that she was raising that handsome man as a pet? When everyone saw the things that Luo Qingtong took out and the things that belonged to the silver fox, right at this moment Huang knew that the silver fox belonged to Luo Qingtong. Otherwise, he spoke there was no way that she would have so many things that belonged to the silver fox. Then hurry up and apologize that Luo Qingtong had planned this all along. The reputation of our Sea Emperor Dragon Court will be completely tarnished and claw marks left by the silver fox on them. It was easy to tell what they were after looking at them. So this silver fox really did belong to Luo Qingtong. Who does he think did this to her? It was the third princess who had trained her. If he hadn't helped her deal with me, princess would actually would have died a long time ago. How could she be such a person? Fox would have been She's mine. A disgrace to the reputation. How would I have ended up in this situation where I and the Sea Emperor's Dragon Court have lost all face? She's a princess, but she wants to steal it from someone else. Her chest heaved up and down, and blood rushed to her head. All eyes gathered on so many princess, she couldn't just give in. Everyone on the third princess's side lowered their heads. She would have turned around and left. This was the Sea Emperor ceremony. Could it be that Huang Fu knew how many people had gathered here? From apologizing to an outsider from Sea Emperor Island, but this was the Sea Emperor ceremony. Figures and there were so many people from other islands. The third princess had disgraced the entire northern territory. Her head. And she couldn't be washed away. And said, doing something like this during the sea god's sacrificial ceremony was going to be a disgrace to the sea god so hard that she almost broke her teeth. Not only she quickly left after saying that, she had also insulted the reputation of the sea emperor Dragon Court in front of so many people. Hatred and viciousness. She didn't know what kind of punishment she would receive when she returned. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. Flogging and confinement would be unavoidable. She walked up to her and those who followed him would also be apprehension. Their future prospects would be uncertain. Can you stay at my place? Everyone's faces turned green and white as they thought about expression and quickly said, their hearts were filled with I can show you around the Northern Territory. If they had known earlier, the Northern Territory is very fun. Offending the third princess was far better than offending the entire Wang and the other Dragon Court. I won't let them disturb you. Everyone's hearts were like dead ashes. He made a solemn promise. The third princess of the Sea Emperor's expression was unsight again. Because of some reason, he couldn't return such a method to territory for the time identity. He thought that he wouldn't be able to see Luo Qingtong for a long time. He didn't expect the girl to appear here. It was a pleasant surprise. Okay. Luo Qingtong hugged Yi Qianxian and gestured to Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others in the crowd. The latter had already rushed over after receiving the news when she was confronting the third princess of the sea. However, because Huang Fushi appeared at that time, Luo Qingtong told them to hold back for the time being. At this time, the young man invited her to live in his residence. Luo Qingtong thought about it and agreed. Firstly, she could avoid a lot of trouble if she stayed at his place. Secondly, she wanted to inquire about Bright Moon Island, and Huang Fushi might be able to help her. Luo Qingtong nodded. Huang Fushi was so happy that he jumped up and hurriedly took Luo Qingtong back to his mansion. He arranged for Luo Qingtong to stay in his courtyard, which was only separated from him by a wall. In this way, if Luo Qingtong had an accident, he would also have an accident. He wouldn't be afraid that someone would dare to secretly find trouble with Luo Qingtong. After all, assassinating the little prince of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court was not a small crime. If the third princess of the sea wasn't stupid, they wouldn't dare to do so. The young man's heart was pure and he really put her safety first. Luo Qingtong remembered this in her heart. After dinner, she said goodbye to Huang Fushi and returned to her room. Haha. After Luo Qingtong closed the door, she couldn't help but laugh. She put Yi Qianxian, who had transformed into a little silver fox, on the bed, then leaned over to him and laughed until she fell down. Qian? Imbao? My little darling? Chapter 1666. With a look of disgust, it raised its paw and slapped Luo Qingtong's face, pushing her away forcefully. This woman, he knew she would definitely laugh at him. He didn't want to talk to her anymore, okay? Looking at its ugly rejection, Luo Qingtong laughed even harder. She was almost out of breath. She couldn't help it. She really couldn't help it. Whenever she thought of the cold and dignified Yi Qianxian becoming this cute and uncontrollable, she couldn't help but want to laugh. Especially when she thought of Yi Qianxian turning into a fox cub and playing with Luo Qingtong's pitiful little eyes. My stomach hurts. How could he not know what she was thinking? She lay on the bed and clutched her stomach. He was so angry that he raised his paw. You might as well die from the pain. Its little paw was soft. Glared at her from the side. When its nails weren't out, he really didn't want to talk to this woman. Was like scratching an itch. Only this woman had a way to make him gnash his teeth, and it was also very comfortable. But at the same time, he couldn't bear to punish her. Even dodge. Yi Qianxian turned its head away, not wanting to look at her at all. However, in the end, she hugged Yi Qianxian and gave him a big kiss. The latter looked at it and laughed for a while. Yi Qianxian really couldn't do anything to her. Then she took out the little cloth mouse that Yinbao used to love playing with the most from her trash ring. He closed his eyes and felt the power in his body. He wanted to suppress the power of the demon fox blood curse. If she dared to let him play Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel, he would definitely be angry. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. Little silver fox was primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Yi Qianxian from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure. That appearance was indescribably angry. However, even if he looked like a fox cub with its fur puffed